Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Skeptic Fence Show. Right now is our guest segment. Tonight's guest is Zoltan Istvan. And, sir, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, and I think it's going to be a really good discussion, interview that we have set up here, so it's going to be great.
Great. Thank you for having me on. I'm thrilled.
No, but before we get on here, I need to play a video, though. Okay, so let's play this video real quick, okay? Here we go. Here's my introduction, and Matthew will give you a proper introduction. Here we go.
It is now my great pleasure to present to you our wise and powerful leader, Zoltan.
Zoltan! Zoltan!
The time has come, you guys. We are finally going to fulfill our prophecy of outer space travel. They laughed at us when we said that aliens existed, and they mocked us when we started wearing bubble wrap jumpsuits. But who's laughing now, huh? I'll tell you who's laughing now. We are! Soon we will leave this lame planet and fly through outer space with cool aliens who like us. It is going to be awesome! Zoltan!
Zoltan, please tell me that's not the first time somebody referenced that movie clip to you. No?
No, it actually happens quite a lot, and I actually like that movie quite a lot too.
So do I. I love that movie. But all joking aside, Matthew.
Hello, Zoltan. Welcome to the show. First, I'd like to ask how you like to be referred to, Mr. Istvan or Zoltan?
Oh, Zoltan is absolutely fine.
All right. I have a short bio that I have shamelessly pilfered from other sites such as the Huffington Post. I hope you don't mind if I read it.
No, please do.
Okay, Zoltan Istvan, an American-Hungarian author, journalist, and entrepreneur, is our guest this week. He began a solo, multi-year sailing journey around the world at the age of 21. His main cargo was 500 handpicked books, mostly classics. He's explored over 100 countries, many as a journalist for the National Geographic Channel, writing, filming, and appearing in dozens of television stories, articles, and webcasts. In addition to his award-winning coverage of the war in Kashmir, he gained worldwide attention for pioneering and popularizing the extreme sport of volcano boarding. I did say volcano boarding. Zoltan later became a director for the international conservation group Wild Aid, leading armed patrol units to stop the billion-dollar illegal wildlife trade in Southeast Asia. He's a philosophy and religious studies graduate of Columbia University and resides in San Francisco with his family. I have some other information about transhumanism that I would like to read before we go too much further for the people who might be watching who aren't familiar even with what that is. I hope you don't mind.
No.
I'd like to read the Transhumanist Declaration from humanityplus.org. Unless you would like to summarize basically the tenets of the general understanding of transhumanism.
You know, you're welcome to read that because it's quite nice and eloquently put as well. Unless you want me to, I can give them my 2 cents right afterwards as well. All
right, well that would be great, and I'll try to read it quickly because I'm sure there are a lot of people here who aren't familiar at all with what transhumanism is. In our show, we focus more usually on skepticism and critical thinking with regards to religion, and a philosophy, if you will, like transhumanism is it's going to be a new concept for a lot of people. It was for me before receiving your book, and I'd like to say thank you again for sending it to us. But I'll just go ahead and begin reading, and I'll go through this quickly. The Transhumanist Declaration. Humanity stands to be profoundly affected by science and technology in the future. We envision the possibility of broadening human potential by overcoming aging, cognitive shortcomings, involuntary suffering, and our confinement to planet Earth. We believe that humanity's potential is still mostly unrealized. There are possible scenarios that lead to wonderful and exceedingly worthwhile enhanced human conditions. We recognize that humanity faces serious risks, especially from the misuse of new technologies. There are possible realistic scenarios that lead to the loss of most, or even all, of what we hold valuable. Some of these scenarios are drastic, others are subtle. Although all progress is change, not all change is progress. Research effort needs to be invested into understanding these prospects. We need to carefully deliberate how best to reduce risks and expedite beneficial applications. We also need forums where people can constructively discuss what should be done, and a social order where responsible decisions can be implemented. Reduction of existential risks and development of means for the preservation of life and health, the alleviation of grave suffering, and the improvement of human foresight and wisdom should be pursued as urgent priorities and heavily funded. Policymaking ought to be guided by responsible and inclusive moral vision, taking seriously both opportunities and risks, respecting autonomy and individual rights, and showing solidarity with and concern for the interests and dignity of all people around the globe. We must also consider our moral responsibilities towards generations that will exist in the future. We advocate the well-being of all sentients, including humans, non-human animals, and any future artificial intellects, modified life forms, or other intelligence to which technological and scientific advance may give rise. We favor allowing individuals wide personal choice over how they enable their lives. This includes use of techniques that may be developed to assist memory, concentration, and mental energy, life extension therapies, reproductive choice technologies, cryonics procedures, and many other possible human modification and enhancement technologies. That, I think, is enough. So if you'd like to, contribute your view on it, we would be appreciative.
Sure. Well, the declaration is very well said. It's eloquent, and it does sum up a lot of the essential tenets of transhumanism. The Latin of transhuman is pretty simple. It just means beyond human. And so anytime that you talk about transhumanism, you're essentially talking about moving beyond what the human being is. Now, broadly defined, that can include anything from using your cellular telephone to, putting on an exoskeleton and doing new sports, which is something that's probably going to start happening next year. So it really varies on how you interpret it. But basically, science and technology are progressing so quickly in the present day that there is going to be a massive influx of brand new technologies that change our lives, that change the way we interact with each other, that change basically culture, society, a civilization as a whole. And so that's essentially what transhumanism is about. It's about endorsing that, welcoming that, but also trying to use that in a way that is actually going to be healthy for human beings across the globe, and also just for us individually, so that we can become better. And, my most important take on transhumanism is that it's going to take care of, or hopefully eliminate, mortality. That's the biggest thing that I really would like to overcome. And so there are many scientists around the world that call themselves transhumanists, and they are working on a way to try to end death. And it's very possible within 20, 30, maybe 40 years, we will be right on the cusp of being able to achieve that.
Yeah, well said. And if it's okay with you, since you expanded on that, we're going to go into our Q&A now. Is that fine with you? And then we'll move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Awesome. And again, I appreciate you coming. This is going to be a great conversation. I only really got two questions, and I know Ned and Matthew have multiple questions for you also. My first question is a basic one. What basically inspired you to make this book, or what was your motivation to make this book, if any, if there was any motivation behind it? That's my first question. What was the motivation behind it, or what inspired you to make this book?
Sure, and I'll just show for any viewers. It's this is the novel that I wrote. It's called The Transhumanist Wager, and I was essentially for the last 20 years I've been doing some interesting jobs, mainly as a journalist. I'd been working for the National Geographic Channel, and I had been covering a lot of conflict zones. Generally, young journalists start off in conflicts, and that's how they build themselves up, the kind of the career ladder. And I had an incident that happened in Vietnam where and this is just one incident. I had a number of other incidents as well in various, at least conflict zones. I was in Vietnam covering a story about bomb diggers digging up bombs that were left over from 30 years ago in the war that took place in the Vietnam War, and I became very close to stepping on a landmine. The entire jungle in the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, is filled with landmines still. And my guide pushed me out of the way and showed me this little piece of metal sticking right out, and we recognized it as a landmine. And it was kind of the moment in my mind when I actually said, you know what, I have been spending too much time being a journalist and just thinking about life as I think everyone else thinks about it, instead of thinking about how to actually stop the biggest problem that there is, which is if the landmine exploded, I likely would have died. And you know, I'm an atheist, a skeptic of any kind of afterlife or of a religion, and so I want a way out. I want a way to continue an existence that I feel is beautiful and wonderful and that I really love. And so I came back after about 4 years of working for the National Geographic Channel, and I began dedicating most of my time to writing this novel, The Transhumanist Wager. And it actually took me approximately 4 years to write because it incorporates a lot of brand new ideas and philosophy, and it also tries to demonstrate a story that's kind of an extreme version of transhumanism. But I believe as an artist, it's good to present extremes because it then helps us to understand where we as a civilization or as a society fit in. And so that was ultimately the reason that I wrote The Transhumanist Wager. I'm trying to, with the book, tell everyone that conquering death through science and technology is not a fairy tale. It's not some Mickey Mouse idea that we're going, you know, that is 200 years into the future. It's actually right here. If we spent $50 billion probably right now, within 10 years, we would have at least an ongoing sentience that would probably not, where we could probably avoid death, at least for certain individuals. However, in the world's net worth is around 200 trillion. So we're talking about a fraction. If the world just spent a fraction of the money of its wealth to spend on conquering mortality, we would probably have a way out. And so I wrote the book to try to get people to do that, to basically get them to sign up and endorse transhumanist technology, endorse life extension technologies, and just culturally try to change people and say, hey, you know, we don't need to think of death as the end. We don't need to think of even our loved ones dying. We can work together, put some of our resource to it, and come up with a cure for that, and perhaps live in a society that is ongoing, not one that is kind of Christian by this idea that we all die and then the next generation comes. I really don't like that idea.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, well said. Like I agree to a certain point where, you know, I believe, you know, when we talk about religion, I think they have hindered, which is evident that they have hindered scientific advancements, technology, no doubt. I mean, like, that's my own belief, and there's people out there that would actually prove that point. But with that being said, I want to ask you another question. This is my second question here. By the way, is your website transhumanist.com?
You know, it's actually transhumanistwager.com.
Oh, that's what I have up. All right, good. Yeah, that's what I have. I think that's the image I have now. I don't know if you're watching the show live. Yeah, transhumanistwager.com. And I got a picture of your book also next to you on the live feed. Okay. So people can see the visual and everything. So, of course, we want to promote you, of course. And that's the reason why, we want you here to promote your book and also to talk to you about the book. My second question is, give us in your words a brief description. I'm not even going to go to that, to be honest with you. Describe... I guess one question I could ask you is describe what it is humanicide formula. Can you give us a brief explanation of that?
Well, this is perhaps one of the most difficult questions of the book, of course, and it's also one of the most difficult concepts. It took me literally years to work out and wonder. And I think, as just to let your readers know, for those who haven't read it, the book is very controversial, even in transhumanist circles. Now, it's done very well. Especially considering that it's an indie book. However, it has really ruffled some feathers in the futurist communities, in the transhumanist communities, in the life extension communities, and as being kind of an extremist book.